Good morning, good afternoon, all. Welcome to the digital download pop-up again. I am taking another crack at guest hosting. Nick has promised to be on his best behavior this week, and we have the rest of the gang here. For those who don't know, I'm Brentney Hutchinson, the Digital Transformation Director at Little Bird Marketing, and happy to be here to talk about humanizing work and get some discussion going. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite.
Shall we go around this way?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Eric from Crux.
The Victorian factory manager, I think, would like to say who goes next, but I think we can handle ours.
Yeah, I'm the Victorian Factory Manager, who is this size these days. This size.
I need to get. We need to get a little. We need to get a little vinyl toy made of Eric with Eric's face on, a little Victorian guy with a Swiss. I'm going to get you one done.
Just looking at a clock, looking at a watch angrily.
You need a monocle
with a flat cap on.
What time do you call this?
I like the idea of a monocle.
Yeah.
I'm Nick, that social nerd, and I'm also part of Crux, who with Eric, who's over that side, up there.
Lenwood, you're next.
Oh, okay. I'm in the middle on my screen. Oh, I see. We're going like this.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Just like a book, left to right, top to bottom.
Away for a week. Forget how to go in order. Lenwood Ross from Accelerate, and we're partners with DLA Ignite. I'm the founder and CEO, and we're accelerating digital transformation through your people. I'm all about the people.
Hooray!
Love the people.
I'm Adam. I'm Tim's business partner and co-founder at DLA Ignite.
And a ventriloquist, by the looks of it.
Hi everybody, I'm William. I run my own consultancy, WSLS, as a learning consultant and coach, but I'm also part of DLA Ignite with Tim and with Adam. So great to be with you all today.
Awesome. Yes, and I guess I should say I am also happy and grateful to be a part of DLA as a partner. So where should we start? Let's
where should we start? You call it. It's your call.
Well, I spent the morning watching that video that Will shared, and I think it got me a little too fired up. I had to take a walk. He's like really into, like, passionate. I mean, great books, but anyway, we'll get to that in a little bit. So yeah, I think there's a lot of talk going on in terms of efficiency and productivity, because the collective as a whole has never had more of the power than now. And so there's kind of multiple messages getting, I think, lost in translation. And it's like, okay, do people just want to work less, or do they really truly value a better working life? And then what is the result of that? These companies who are letting individuals, or not letting, but these companies who are empowering their employees to cultivate a more conscious workplace culture, are they expected to have the same productivity as organizations who are still doing the 5-day, 40+ hour work week, the 30 minutes for lunch? Or is there changing mindsets around how much productivity is supposed to be coming out? Does the input necessarily equal the output? And what does that look like?
Well, I'll jump in here. There are a lot of different factors that are influencing this, and I think that the more an organization is focusing on outcomes as a general proposition, the more likely they are to be willing to have a flexible work schedule. That being said, this week we saw companies that are known for focusing on their outcomes say we're calling people back to the office. So for at least some portion of the week, in the case of Google, it's going to be, looks like it's going to be 3 days. Now that's going to impact productivity because we've had a study during the pandemic that showed the productivity gains came from people not having to commute. So if you make people commute, they're going to lose that time that they were using to work. So, this story is not over, obviously. Even as we transition to companies calling their employees or saying that their employees have to come back to work, the market pressures, I think, are going to be such that you're going to have a few companies or companies start to get more aggressive in terms of their flexible, their prop policies towards their employees because they're competing for talent. The talent crunch is only just beginning. The battle for talent is only just beginning. So, no, there's no answers. It's the conclusion is there are
people have tuned in for answers, Lenwood. You can't say that.
There are no answers, just more questions.
This is this little guy talking, right? This is this. I'm gonna like a beanbag, get a self-help group, right? If I'm holding whoever's holding the little Victorian factory manager, right? So this is him speaking, not necessarily me. Yes, you have him too. Yes. If I should probably talk like that, if I invest in complex, personalized, flexible working schemes for individuals, quite right. If I put the benefits package in, if I put the whole thing in place, which is going to have an overhead effect, right? I'm going to have to spend money, all that stuff, 4-day weeks and flexible working and flexi schemes and digital systems to be able to track all of this and blah, blah, blah. I'll wait till all these are done because I don't want to speak over them if there's anything good. Fair enough. I've totally forgotten what I was going to say. Right, so if I invest in all of that, if I put the time and effort and the teams and the implementation into all of this and I finally get it going, so I'm now spending more money, my overhead is slightly higher to put all this in place. Do I expect an increase in productivity? Do things, or should I just expect the same? It's a genuine question. Should I just expect the same in terms of EBITDA and in terms of revenue, in terms of work done, or am I actually going to? Is this going to make things better? It's a genuine question.
It must
what
make
was the
things
first
better,
part
doesn't
of what
it?
you said, though? That was I missed the first part.
That if I'm an employee, so we've got two buildings in a city, right? They've both got 2,000 people in them. They're both pretty much in the same sector, doing the same stuff. One asks people to be in their chair at 8:30 and leave at 4:30 and just do what they do. They don't have a huge benefits program. They don't have very flexible working. This one on this side of the street is all about flexi working, benefits packs that are totally different and modern and tuned in. You know, you can work 3 days a week, you can work 2 days from home, you can work a 4-day week, you can have flexi plans, all the cool stuff. Does this company over here have a higher rate of productivity and a higher rate of outcome, and are they better positioned to take market share and the lead in the market because they have implemented that working scheme?
If that is part of an overall cultural transformation that's tied to their digital transformation, then they're well on their way. Flexible working is about changing the way you work to support a digital culture. All of this technology is what's enabling this, okay? And organizations need to be moving to through cultural transformation to support their new business models, which they should be dreaming up right now, right? And driving their business forward. So I would say yes. They're because the other guys, if they're stuck in that old way of working, that old way of thinking, they're not addressing the fundamental kind of foundational things that they're going to need to change their business model and compete in the new economy.
Well put. Well put.
But even if you're not, even if you're not being as productive because you're working 4 days per week within the corporate environment, the benefit is that people don't leave as quickly as they did leave. Therefore, you haven't got that ramp up time when you bring on a new starter within the organization before they become productive, and you haven't got the costs associated with recruiting somebody new. So even if productivity perhaps even goes down a little bit, maybe the overall EBITDA and benefit goes up. But I think that it was quite interesting when you said, I think it was you, Lambert, that said about organizations starting to call people back to the office. Although even with organizations that have new thinking, surely if you've invested in a 5 or a 10-year lease on a building and you're committed to it, as an organization, you have to think about how you're going to get some sort of value out of that. So encouraging people to come back for part of their week is a prerequisite, isn't it? Otherwise, you've just got a huge premium office space that's never being used.
What was that from Jeff? I didn't quite get that. Isn't it more about how you enable work productivity, not where you enable work? I think it has to include where. I think it has to include all elements of how, what, where, why, and who. I think it has to be a balanced approach. It's not just the how. It includes the where, because that's everything about it, right?
Yeah,
I think whether you're trying to increase productivity and output and efficiency, or whether you're trying to support and encourage innovation and creativity, which we're seeing makes for happier people and just a better workplace, the answer is the same. Like the solution can be looked at as like the same solution, but it's important to just be clear on which one you're going for and be clear in your company culture. That way, through recruiting and through management.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people are introducing this, it must be from the point of view that they think that they're going to gain some advantage from it. Otherwise, why would you do that? Why would you make that investment? And that advantage may be through being more productive in the moment. It may be through retaining people for longer. It may be by making yourself more attractive to recruit the top talent at the moment. So there could be a variety of reasons why people are doing those things. And I think, it's harder perhaps in a service type industry, but in a kind of manufacturing industry or business where you've got two businesses that are the same and ultimately they've invested the same, let's say, in their production process, the real differential point is going to be around how people work there and what they're going to bring and how they're going to contribute to the actual overall process. And therefore, if you can have an organization where people are happier to be there, I think to come to the point that somebody made earlier, that actually it's about, I'm just trying to go back, it's around the autonomy that you're going to give people, because actually, a lot of studies have talked about people are most happy in work when they're given autonomy, when they're allowed to get on and organize and do things as they see it and not be micromanaged for every particular step of the way that they've got to go through. And therefore, all of these things then contribute to getting that that differentiation and the competitive advantage which comes with it.
It's empowering as well, isn't it? When you allow your workforce to do that, and to go back to your point as well, William, there's the the happiness equation in that as well. If you're happy, you're going to be more productive at work. It's just a natural evolution of that.
Has anyone ever worked in this environment?
What do you mean?
I mean, fully applied, like the sort of utopia that we're talking about just now. This completely empowered, autonomous place with maximum flexibility, tuned in to the person, and not about. Has anyone ever actually experienced it done well?
I did when I was at Oracle, which is where I met Tim. My role was very much that. I was free to move around as I wanted to, but that was largely because my manager wanted it that way. You don't need to come into the office when you haven't got these things to do, so your time is your own, basically.
Wow.
But I think that was the exception. He was a very forward-looking manager, and lots of people within the organization weren't. And it wasn't a universally held way of operating, because I think it works for some people in some businesses, in some applications, but it's not a universal wallpaper that you can put over everything, is it?
Yeah, I agree with that, Adam. And there's been some conversation about efficiency, and really efficiency is almost an antiquated way to think about it, because so much of the efficiency that organizations get actually comes from the technology that they're using. What we need now is to focus on people being more effective in a digital economy. And being effective in a digital economy requires much more social interaction, much more collaboration, much more creativity. In order to make those things happen, people need to work in certain ways. So we need to be more intentional, is what I would like to say, in terms of how we use space, how we use technology to get the results that we need. So having a physical office where you require people to come every day just because that's the way we've always done it, that's not being intentional. Even when you say, oh, we're looking to encourage a certain kind of serendipitous interaction between people because we need to have these social connections occurring so that people are creative. That's just saying, hey, if we put everybody together and we put the furniture a certain way, maybe they'll bump into each other and great things will happen. I mean, that is what people are essentially saying.
But isn't that the Apple headquarters is designed that way, isn't it?
Yeah, Apple
so they've spent
$5 billion.
Yeah, the most expensive building ever built. And they've designed it so that you have to walk past other people's desks to go to the toilet. Absolutely, so you can have these interactions with people.
Yeah, they're trying to create serendipitous moments by requiring people through furniture and other fixture variations to bump into each other. But there are better ways to make those things happen. I'm not saying that there is no application for the office, but requiring people to come to a certain, which people weren't doing anyway. Apple's got operations all over the world. So what are the people who are in these operations all over? They're not coming to the spaceship to bump into people. So, the idea that we pre-pandemic had our entire workforce in one location and they were able to interact with people, to create this. It's just a fiction that that we've created in our minds. So
how many office spaces did you go and visit where you walked into and you were taken through the floors to meet your person, and it's floor after floor of people sitting with headphones on, not talking to each other,
or empty.
Or empty, yeah.
People not even there. People on the road. I mean, consulting for years. They're not even located at their office. They're in their clients' offices in many cases. Yep. People they're all over every place. So, I mean, I think that I don't know what the psychological terms are for it, but whatever, we're creating this fiction about the way work used to be because now everybody's working from home. I don't think work was ever actually that way. When was everyone ever actually really in the office? And frankly, at a certain level in the organization, people do what they want anyway.
How dare you? How dare you?
I mean, that is
how dare you let the cat out of the bag? People doing what they want.
For the most part, I think we know that's true. That's sea level. They come in.
To your point, Linwood, does that mean that the C-suite or middle management has a greater impact on how well a company is able to adjust, like in this modern?
It's changing. It starts at the top. The CEO and the board, they setting the tone for the whole organization. Okay, so that's number one. But the command and control organization is no longer effective. That strategy, that way of operating an organization is increasingly less effective. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Okay, what most organizations need to do is flatten out and have frontline workers be more empowered to interact with customers, partners, and each other, to make decisions at the front line that add value to the customer.
I'm going to press the hooter. And call a challenge to that statement right at the start of that. And it's meant with love, because I love you to bits. The CEO and the board setting the tone for the organization. Challenge to that. In 2022, the people are setting the tone for the organization, and the boards are having to now go, oh, right.
They're the ones who are wanting everybody to come back into the office, and people are saying, well, I don't want to go back into the office.
Yeah, and you know, that's a great point. When I'm saying they're setting the tone for the organization, I mean, ultimately, these people who are responsible for the shared purpose and value, or at least setting the vision for the organization and creating a shared purpose and values for the organization, like they're actually setting the tone for the organization. But to your point, people now, empowered primarily by social media and the ability to have to know what everybody else is thinking, are pushing back.
Did you nearly use the collusion word there?
I won't say collusion, but social media is
encrypted WhatsApps. Yeah, very much so.
Right? You know, there's a lot more. People have a lot greater ability to organize because of technology. And it's a lot easier for your competitors to get to your people than it used to be. So that's just the reality of modern business. So, but getting back to your point, I think that the smart, I won't say smart, but the more, I don't know, progressive, tuned in type people, they're listening to their employees. The easiest thing to do is to ask them, you know, how should we be doing this? Be engaged in a conversation that leads to a co-creation of the employee experience. I mean, that's kind of like an ideal, but
that depends very much on the culture that you've got within an organization. And, you know, if you're actually prepared to act on what you hear from your employees to do, otherwise, you know, the whole idea of doing that is a kind of waste of time. And I think
listening's just the start, right?
Right. Hasn't social completely democratized this entire process, though? Are we getting to the point where even a CEO is slightly irrelevant in terms of how an organization, and that might be a bit too left field, but in terms of how
taxi for Doyle? Yeah, I'll be there in 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes. Sorry, guys.
I came across a fascinating post the other day. It's not one of the shared pieces of content which I'm going to put up, but it was a friend of mine, Jacob, and to reference the war that's happening right now. He found a thread on Twitter that was saying that the Ukrainians are actually winning the war based on the fact that they're using social to orchestrate their attacks on the Russians. The Russians are fighting a war from 10 years ago, and the Ukrainians are using social to literally. It's like, if they can do that, imagine what an organization could do with that technology.
That's why the US completely changed. You know, Stanley McChrystal's book, Team of Teams, was all about what the US learned in Iraq, and they realized that they were fighting the last war, when these, the people they were up against were much more mobile, much more agile, didn't have the kind of formal structures in place. And, that caused a complete rethink about how the US and the kind of command structure worked. And their whole premise there was to empower people. And, it was people who were kind of running drones, etc., who actually made the calls and the decisions.
It's fascinating for the future of the future of the entire. It's mind-blowing in terms of what the landscape for the future of business will look like.
It's a proven fact from the armies that are in Afghanistan that influence of marketing reduced the number of roadside bombs.
Mm-hmm.
There you have
they
it.
Used the first battalion that always is dropped into whatever country it is from a UK perspective is the social media team.
Crikey.
Wow. I mean, it is a powerful metaphor for what's going on in business today.
Parachute.
Hashtag scary.
It's a powerful metaphor for what's going on today and what large companies really need to think about, because it tends to be the larger companies, and although not exclusively, that are commanding control, but smaller, more agile, more social, technologically savvy organizations are able to do a lot by amplification.
Run circles.
But is that a good thing?
Around the competition.
Is that
I don't
a
know
good
if it's
thing?
good or a bad thing, but it's
So,
it's reality.
we've got Eric, Victorian factory boss.
No.
I'm
tiny now.
teasing. Yeah, tiny Victorian factory boss.
Heart strength too.
He's still got his stopwatch and his clipboard.
Yeah,
Hashtag long time ago.
And for that person, not you, Eric, but for that person, people clock in and they clock out. You clock in, I own you. You clock out, I don't own you. And that's a really simple binary situation. Now, we are all empowered individuals and we are doing something that we love. So Tim goes away on holiday with his partner, and from looking at what he does, you cannot tell he's not sitting at his desk anymore. He's sitting by the pool, writing posts, engaging with people, going out for a couple of hours to go and do some sightseeing and then coming back. And we're all a bit like that. Last thing I do before I go to sleep is to go onto LinkedIn and answer questions from people and retweet things and do all of that stuff, because we all do it from when we wake up to when we go to bed. Now, for us, we don't see that as a hardship. But for many people, that's potentially not a good situation to be in, I suspect. Because now there isn't that delineation, is there, between at work and not at work? You're always at work. My entire working life, I've said, if my mobile is on, you can phone me. And if I can take the call, I will take the call. But you have to, for that to be feasible for you as an individual, you have to genuinely love your job, don't you?
Yeah.
But then, do you not think those two things are, and they have been blurring for a long time, that divorce?
They have for you. But what I'm saying is that there's a big difference between saying, us from a small company or a group of small companies where we all have a vested interest in those companies succeeding and doing something that we're passionate about. It works for us. Therefore, that translates globally across everybody that isn't working in a factory. And I'm not sure that it does. I'm not sure that this style of working and this flexibility suits everybody.
Brentney's been trying to get in for 5 minutes, but our mic's been underpowered. So go for it, Brentney.
Oh,
go for it.
I appreciate. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So, no, I think I was just going to say I'm showing my age a little bit here, but I really do think that the companies are going to have to enforce those boundaries, and their employees are the ones that have the control right now, as like we've all alluded to. It's going to have to be like the freedom. Employees kind of get everything right now. It is a win-win in such that you have happy employees and you're leading and driving successful business, but everything else is going to fall in favor of the employees. That means supporting mental health by enforcing boundaries, allowing them to work the way they want to work, allowing them to embrace creativity. And it's very different, but I think there are companies who are willing to do that, and all of the best people are going to go there.
But how do you enforce those boundaries? So if Priscilla says to you, I don't want you to be online after 7 p.m. and it's 8:30 and you've just finished your meal and you're sitting down in front of the TV and you pick up your phone and you say, 5 minutes won't hurt. Because actually you're making that choice to do that. So I don't think it's as simple as saying enforcing stuff. I can enforce when you are there. I can't enforce when you're not there.
No, you're totally right. And you have some employees, probably like most of us, who like you're saying, if you have 5 minutes, no matter what time of day, you're going to get on and do some type of work. But the companies are doing things like no meetings on Friday, no meetings after certain times, no communication on Saturdays and Sundays, and like restricted hours, and just like being more respectful of the things that they actually can enforce. Or I don't like enforce is a difficult word.
What you're bringing up there, I think, are two really interesting concepts. On one side, you've got control, and actually part of the kind of line that runs through a lot of what we're talking about is all about control. Organizations, when they went from artisanal to kind of the industrial age, was all about getting control of your workforce. And there were a lot of positive things that were driving that when Henry Ford put his production line in place, because he wanted to make sure that, the goods were standardized, the quality was at an acceptable level, all of those type of things. So, the Victorian factory owner or early 20th century factory owner, that's what they were all about. So control. And we've kind of signed up and continued to kind of work with this, probably long past its sell-by date, or at least a time where we should have probably reviewed this and say, is this still the most effective way for bunches of people to come together and work together in the variety of different spaces that have now propagated in the last kind of 20 or 30 years? So there's a kind of choice there. And then when we look at the kind of the whole bit about working in the office, working from home, I've heard companies talk about working from anywhere rather than just saying, well, you should be working from home. And picking up Tim's point or Adam's point about Tim away on holiday, you wouldn't necessarily know he's on holiday because there is still an output coming out from him. And I think this then feeds into the second point, which is around choice. And, where do we set these kind of definitions in terms of control? Because there are some countries we know where there's now kind of laws to say that you can't send emails. An organization, a company can't send an email out to its workers, and the workers don't have to respond after a certain period of time.
Is that France?
Belgium.
Yeah, it's Belgium. I think it's Germany, maybe even Spain.
Yeah.
I think, funnily enough, France for once wasn't at the kind of top of the list there. You've got that element of choice, and where does it come to the individual? I mean, Robert made a really good point in the chat where he said he couldn't believe that some of his friends would say that you're not charging your time for working at the weekend. Some people enjoy work, or they feel that they want to kind of contribute to an organization. So, where, if ever, do you draw that line between choice of an individual, and are they doing it because out of free will, or is it because they kind of feel constrained that they need to react in that time?
I think there's an element of that. So I work for a company that the UK is 40-hour work week. You can't demand that of anyone else. And so on signing the contracts, it was like you need to abdicate your right to abiding by the 40-hour work week.
Yeah,
because that was just the expectation.
Could we just have a look at Norbert's comment, because it just caught my eye? Norbert, sorry. So I've got a theory on that. Thank you so much for your question. If you don't love your job, what's the point of doing it? Some people have to. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. And if you love your job, work does not feel like work at all. I love what I do. This is the thing that I'm doing in my life that I've loved the most. And it's the most stressful, hard work I've ever put into anything. I love it so much. I'm putting so much time and effort, and energy into it. It's exhausting. It does feel like work, but I love it. So these statements are cool, maybe require a bit of different thought, but there are lots of people that are trapped in stuff that they hate, and they've been in it for 30 years, and they cannot find a way out, and wouldn't even know where to start to find a way out, unfortunately.
And it's not even in cool jobs working in office spaces. In fact, I was just reading a book review over lunchtime, which has been out about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'll find the reference and I'll put it in the chat. But it was essentially about key workers during COVID, and the book focuses not on the key workers that we've all kind of talked about, i.e. nurses, police, all of those. It was the people who actually really behind the scenes would continue to do their job even during COVID. So people in slaughterhouses, people in prisons, and it's written from an American perspective, but it's fascinating from the point of view, to pick up on your point, Eric, that for a lot of these people, they're in jobs which they can't stand, they hate, but they haven't got any other option, because, they go up to their boss and say, well, I want to leave, or I don't like this. And they'd say, well, fine, because they know they can find other people who are desperate enough, unfortunately, to need this type of work.
Yeah, and no amount of Great Resignation blogs about chucking it all in, chuck in the 2 jobs that you're working to try and pay for your family and your food and all that, and go and start and start
follow
a
your
winery.
dream.
Start a winery in California. Yeah, that's not going to help them. Needs to find something else. Brentney.
I mean, yeah, it's like Linwood said, there's no answer. It's fun to discuss, and it's fun to watch it unfold. It's fun to be a part of the discussion. But yeah, we'll just have to see. So another thing
is William's content very similar to the subject that because you mentioned it earlier on, didn't you?
He shared a video. Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Will. Do you want to start? I watched the long. Yes.
Yeah. So this was posted by Michael Zani, who's an author along with Gary Hamill, and they've written, I think, a book on rehumanizing the workplace. And they had a conversation with Eric Ries, who's best known for writing a book called The Lean Startup, and they were basically talking about the future of work and, looking back to see how work had evolved. And I know that we'd been talking about this on Monday when we were talking about the kind of content. So I was really happy that I stumbled across this, as this was, seemed to be really on the theme of what we wanted to talk about. And fascinating 50 minutes. It's well worth listening to. And as you said, Brentney, Eric was very passionate about what he was talking about. And there are a couple of things that really resonated for me, because he said, part of the problem that people were facing at the moment in businesses was this kind of very conservative mindset about where they'd come from. There wasn't really an incentive for managers to change the way that they were operating. And I made this point a couple of weeks ago. If you've been brought up in an organization and you've spent your time and you're getting closer to getting those end C-suite jobs, then why would you suddenly want to turn everything into turmoil and change that kind of process just at the point that you're going to benefit from it? So there's a kind of self-interest there. And, Eric Ries also talks a lot about very short-term thinking. And I think this also kind of populates part of what we've been talking about today, which is, there's this focus on the here and now, but we're not necessarily taking into account the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. And there was one other thing that kind of really hit me, because he also talks about people who go through college and do their MBAs. And he said, MBAs are really great, but it kind of sets your mindset in a way of thinking. And I think when I think back to my own career, having done an MBA, having then worked in a big corporate, you kind of feel slightly constrained by that background and that experience. And I think that's why, I found I wasn't necessarily challenging or bringing enough new ideas, because I had all of these kind of concepts and preconceived ideas, which acted as a straitjacket rather than necessarily opening up and allowing me to be more innovative and creative in my thinking. And it's only then by moving outside and then working for myself, like Eric said, that suddenly you've got this kind of opportunity, and there's a kind of a need and a desire for you to think differently. So sorry, a lot of parts there, but long and short of it, really well worth watching that interview.
Great point. Great share, William. And I just wanted to just say one thing. There's a prominent venture capital firm that is now encouraging founders that come to them to be thinking more long-term and less short-term. So I think that's really interesting. I think it's something that's starting to trend a little.
That's probably because the exit times and the flip times were always ridiculous. We'll just pump this foie gras goose full of steroids and we'll flip it in 18 months isn't going to work anymore.
Actually, the reason that they're encouraging that is because short-term thinking causes founders to invest in the wrong things in terms of building these companies. And these venture capitalists want founders to think more long-term about really building market-dominating organizations. And if you focus on the near term, you're not doing that. Or short term, not near term, short term thinking. You're not thinking about that.
Bravo! About time too.
I would definitely say it's worth the 50 minutes. There were two things that kind of stuck out to me. Well, I had a lot of notes as I was listening to it, but the one thing he said, we're kind of putting unrealistic expectations in that we're looking to the people who have seen success and have been living and working by these old ways for so long. And now we're looking to them for answers on like, okay, how do we approach this moving forward? And that's like that's not really fair. And then the second thing was that we continuously invest and increase the technology, but we're leaving behind the purpose and the people. So, it's like really causing, it doesn't make any sense. And he goes off on it. So watch it.
I love that part you said about the MBA as well. I've worked with some shocking MBAs and some brilliant MBAs, and the brilliant MBAs are the ones that realize that having a master's in business administration does not make you a master in business administration. Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I just wanted to clarify my point because Alistair raised something about the funding period. This venture capitalist is not expecting less growth. They're not saying grow slower or we'll give you more time for our return. They're saying we want you to think long term, so you invest in different things at the start.
But still make your numbers.
But still make your number. Don't
grow
your
numbers.
But still give us a return.
Try to growth hack your way and create the right infrastructure for the long haul. But you still got to make those numbers.
It kind of circles back to the original question for this, and that's even though this conscious culture is being normalized, what happens to the productivity and the output expectations? So
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Right. Good point.
Okay.
Shall I put the next piece of content up?
Please.
Eric.
Oh, right. Can I actually share it? Because then I can scroll through it.
Yeah, do it.
Do you want to take that off? I don't know if this will work because I usually put a video up, so this probably isn't going to work. So this is from the lovely Tim Wiggum. Tim Wiggum is a performance specialist at. Has that come up?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'm just distracted.
I'm distracted with Nick and his
no signal.
Is that come up or is that come up?
User.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, we can see it, Eric.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So this is from Tim Wiggum. He's a performance guide, executive coach, and recent TED talker in the recent round of Aberdeen TED Talks. He's a best-selling co-author on the concept of performance and team management. He writes a lovely newsletter. He calls it Mood Set for Mastery, and he wrote this one the other day and published it. Face fear with hope, which I thought was quite fitting. Fear is a fascinating topic. He talks about from Psychology Today. Describes fear as there are many things that motivate us, but the most powerful motivator of all is fear. It's a primal instinct, served us as cave dwellers and still serves us today. But he goes on to talk about using fear and converting that to hope, and he brings current situations that are happening in the world into focus. He also talked about the huge shadow that was cast in terms of fear by COVID-19. And but then came hope of a vaccine, hope for an immunity, hope for a way of living with the virus as much as we do with other diseases. In Tim's TED Talk, he talks about South Africa, his country of birth, a place where fear abounded before Nelson Mandela inspired hope by painting a different picture of how the future could be, a future that allowed everyone equality and an opportunity to flourish. The first Black Springbok captain, Siya Kolisi, led South Africa to victory in 2019. He's the very embodiment of hope from fear. So he writes this beautiful piece, which of course is tinged very much by what's happening in the world today. And he leaves it with a beautiful note at the end. So this is a modern leader writing a thought leadership piece. This has got nothing to do with what Exceed do for a living, which is wealth management and performance coaching for drilling teams and all of that. But it's actually got everything to do with that. At a personal level, I aspire to believe in better. Hope is more aspiring than fear, so I will face fear with hope, and I believe that justice will excel and prevail. As Abraham Lincoln said, I will study and prepare myself, and someday my chance will come. It's a great newsletter to subscribe to. It's well put, and it's totally the kind of thing that Tim puts out on a regular basis.
Great share.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
It reminds me of, I can't think of the exact name of it, but it's like the emotions, the frequency of emotions, and it starts at like fear, and then as you like become more hopeful, and then like gratitude, and then like joy, and like you're as you're moving up in like the frequency of emotions. Yeah.
And then you get a baby Grogu, like over my shoulder, and then like the world. Just before we move on, what was I going to say? Yeah, the Tim. I did a Cruxcast with Tim early last year, and he told me a phrase. He used to be a captain in the British Army, and he told me a phrase that he used when he was in manoeuvres doing his things, and it's actually served me really, really well for a year or so. And I think about it all the time whenever I hit that bump in the road. Tim said, I said, what do you say when you put the plan into action, and what do you say when things alter in the plan? He said, well, we've got a term that we're trained in. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. We expect to be changing the plan from pretty much minute one. And it's expected. So when things do go wrong, and when there is a bit of drama, and that thing that was supposed to be there isn't there, and that order doesn't come in, or that, it's okay because it was expected. That's all right. We knew that we'd have to pull back into a quiet space, sit down and reconfigure the plan. And we also know that reconfiguration is not going to survive first contact with the enemy. And that just keeps going. So the expectation and acceptance of drama, problems, and things not going the way you want, it's actually built into the plan and the mindset. And that's really helped me in the last year or so.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow, great.
Are you familiar with Stoicism?
Yeah.
No,
It's funny you mentioned it. I was reading about it the other day in more depth. Amazing.
Oh yeah, I discovered it probably like 3 years ago, and I swear like it became my Bible, and I just think it like completely changed my mindset. And there's a lot about like expecting and like preparing, but not dwelling on it, So
Absolutely.
Anyway, I don't want to. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Cool. Thank you.
Adam.
Yeah, so I must be fess up here and tell the truth. I'm kind of an Elon Musk fan club member. I think
a
he's
Muscadite.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely
Musky.
Musky.
Primarily because it appears he can see into the future.
He's an alien.
And yeah, well, but very possibly. And B, because he has a fantastic attitude of just getting things done. This being a prime example of that. Where the Ukrainian vice prime minister said, this is going on. You're sending people to Mars. We've got problems here. And within 10 hours, he says, OK, here's a solution to this. And I think this is a really valuable post on so many levels. First, Jay is a client of Eric's, and he identifies as a Burritonian. So Eric's show from a Thursday morning, which is lovely. So that's kind of a great shout out to him. B, because this is a post which is positive. I'm taking positive action to try to make better a situation which is A, out of my control, and B, on everybody in the world's mind at the moment. And C, because it absolutely articulates why social is so important, because it's putting Elon's message out there saying that I'm not sitting on my hands just waiting for someone else to deal with the problem, but also he's empowering an opportunity for people in Russia to see what the truth is, because the people in Russia, well, to see a more balanced view of the truth, perhaps would be a better way of putting it, because people in Russia are very much fed by a state-owned media, TV and media, so they get a very one-sided view. We all do. We're all subjects of cognitive dissonance and bias as a result of the media that we're fed. But having a balanced view of that put in front of you at least gives you the option to have an open mind. So I thought this was just a really apposite post at the moment with what's going on in the world, because it scores on so many different levels. So that was why I flagged this.
Yeah, tremendous.
Nice.
Yeah, there was the CEO of Gravy. He posted about this point and shared almost the same photo, I think, and it went viral. I don't know if disappointed is the right term, but I was looking at the comments on it, and just the amount of hate toward Elon Musk, and it's like people completely missed the point of why he was sharing it. People wanted to fact check him and say he's not actually sending service, and just talk about the downside of it. And that's just such a slippery slope. You make, as you're saying, the real purpose and value in what he's doing, it really has nothing to do with the internet in Ukraine at all. It's sharing real truth to people who maybe wouldn't get it otherwise. And I don't know. I just couldn't believe how many negative comments were.
But I think you always get that, don't you? So it doesn't matter who the individual is that's doing, in your eyes, great things. There will be people for whom that doesn't align with their world map, and in their opinion, everybody's they're doing very bad things. And that's just the nature of freedom of speech, I guess.
Yeah. I just think too many people miss the point of why. So cool. Okay, who's next? Nick, I don't think is coming back.
He's got to refill his water this time.
Yeah. He says his charger's died.
He's got all this fancy kit. He's got about £50,000 worth of high-end video and audio equipment in that studio.
Rubbing his nose in that, don't you, Eric?
Love it.
Who's this one?
This is me.
Right.
This is really just a feel-good post. I just saw it and I don't know. I am a board member of the 0.5% Project, which is an animal welfare organization. I'm a lover of animals, both domestic and wild. I don't think that humans are doing a good enough job of caring for our global ecosystem, or considering that animals are more than just meat. I don't, if you could just scroll up so that we could just watch this video. Yeah. So, someone's videoing here, herd of elephants crossing the road. Obviously, they're sitting in a vehicle or something. Look at all those beautiful elephants.
It's a traffic jam, isn't it?
Right there at the end.
Oh, come on.
I love
it. Zebra
Thanks, mate.
Oh.
Thanks, mate.
It's a trunk road. Come on, guys.
Letting us cross. I just loved it.
I'm here all week. Try the view. I think that's brilliant. I live with a woman, Sarah, my wife, who's changed my view on. So when I met Sarah, I was like, and we moved in together. She was like, by the way, listen, there's a principle here. We don't have a single product in this house that's tested on animals, and we actively root out products from across the whole range of domestic life, from perfume to cleansing products. and she's signed up to all that. She gets all the data coming in and makes sure that not only are they not tested on animals, but no part of the, because a lot of companies say this product isn't tested on animals, but some of the components might be. So she does the research. So, and I saw a lovely note that, so we've just got used to that. We put our money in places where, like I saw a quote the other day on a post that said, every time you spend $1 or £1 or €1, you're making a vote for what you want to see happen in the world. And I think that's true. If you just willingly go in and just spend your money on anything without doing any research, you're just voting for what kind of world you want to live in. And we can make those little choices to help animals, to help humans, to make sure that that product, that company isn't associated with the slave trade or whatever it might be, just to make those conscious consumer decisions to make things like that continue to live that beautiful moment. Excellent.
Yeah. As many of you know, we lost, we had 2 dogs. We lost one about 6 months ago, Sadie. We lost the other one 3 years ago. We lost Sadie, our other, just recently. Now, before we adopted Sadie, I had no idea that animals have personalities.
They do.
And it was only through, experiencing it up close every day. Animals have personalities.
100%.
And I couldn't believe it. And that dog taught me so much about life and love that I did not learn in my decades of life from humans. And it's just worth considering. And there's a woman, I'll share it next time. There's a woman, she posts on Instagram, Bunny. I don't know if you've seen What About Bunny? Okay, Bunny is I think like a Labradoodle or something like that. Okay, black and white. She's taught this dog to communicate using pads. Okay, so she has conversations with the dog, and the dog can do all kinds of communication with this floor pad where it uses its paw to communicate with her. It's pretty amazing.
Nick, do you want to do your content next?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I had
your face is beautiful.
To go.
Yeah, I know. I had to swap. So I've got a new camera here, which I was due to set up anyway, but I've only got one fixed lens on it, which unfortunately is a 50mm without getting too nerdy, which is why it's like right in on my face. But hey. So yeah, I was listening to my my car map earlier, which I'm a big fan of. I know Mr. Doyle is as well, and there was a word that came up on it called which I'd never heard before, called Shoshin, which is a word from Zen Buddhism, which means beginner's mind. And I find it funny how people kind of so entrenched in kind of traditional marketing and sales think that the world operates the way it used to. It's very hard for them to put away kind of preconceived notions and kind of start from scratch, which is why I wanted to share this post from Remco about social selling. So Remco has a kind of dyed-in-the-wool marketing background, but he's put away any kind of preconceived notions of what he thinks about social, and so he's had to kind of learn again and start from scratch. So he's got beginner's mind essentially. I think the reason I personally enjoy social is because as a creative, I don't have any of the kind of associated baggage that traditional sales and marketing people do. I had to learn it, so I had beginner's mind. I had to start from scratch.
Are you playing the bongo?
Say that again, Brentney?
The bongo noise? It's getting louder and louder. Anybody? Okay.
No, I can't hear any bongoing.
It's like getting louder and louder and louder. I can barely even hear you. Okay, sorry.
Nick, if you move your head, there's someone playing the bongos behind you.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to hide.
I don't know what you mean.
No, it's like,
What are you on about?
It's an AMSR.
it's like a bucket, an empty bucket, hydro bucket.
Okay. Yeah, I had to have beginner's mind. I had to come to this with a fresh kind of mindset, And Shinryu Suzuki, a Zen teacher, which was also quoted on the car map, his quote was, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few." To quote Yoda, we have to unlearn what we've learned in order to understand social. For many traditional old school sales and marketing people, that is the hardest thing for them to do, is put away those preconceived notions. So,
Unlearn you must.
Unlearn you must.
Unlearn you must. That would have been way more weight to it if we weren't looking right up your nostrils right now.
I know. I will fix my camera next week. Look, this is, you can see here, this is the bit that broke on my power adapter to my camera.
No.
So.
No.
Yes.
I have to drop off to meet with the client. I'm so sorry to have to leave abruptly.
Thanks, Will.
Okay.
Thanks for.
This was great.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, it is 9, or it's 4.
I'm gonna go do the school run.
Time? Okay.
Bye-bye.
So, what'd you say?
You're saying goodbye.
Oh, okay. Yes. Well, I mean, we can wrap up now. Does anybody have any parting final thoughts that they want to add before we?
I thought this was really good discussion.
Yeah,
terrific. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. I learned loads.
Another great job. Thank
appreciate
you very much
everybody.
indeed.
And the comments have been absolutely awesome.
He got a little bit smaller. Even smaller. Even smaller.
No, this is great. I appreciate the contribution and look forward to next week.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Well done.
Good weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Great
Bye,
seeing
guys.
everyone.